Hey guys and gals, welcome to my home lake, Tenkiller Lake. You know, I started fishing Tenkiller when I was 12 years old. I also guided on this lake when I was in college, and we've lived here pretty much all our life. It's one of the best little jewels in the middle of the world. We're here in the end of the Ozarks. They call this the Cookson Hills. This lake's only about 20,000 acres. 20 some odd miles long, built on the Illinois River, and just a nice little pretty lake to fish. You can fish it when the wind's blowing like crazy, or you can fish it on beautiful fall days like we've got today. This lake makes electricity. They make electricity, and so in other words, current is very prevalent. It's relatively narrow all the way down, so that current has a little bit more effect on those fish. In the summertime, when they're producing a lot of electricity for air conditioning, those offshore places really produce a lot of fish out there. You know, when you get up in the river, you've got, well, like most river in the mountains, you've got one side it's got bluffs and steep areas. The other side of the river is generally flat, so you can fish either one. As you move down the lake, you got a lot of bluff areas. You have a lot of what we call chunk rock banks. And you got some places where you have little housing additions around off a point in 18 or 20 foot of water. It's extremely good structure fishing out in the middle. And there's a lot of man-made brush piles in this lake. There's a lot of trees that you can fish now that are out in the middle of the lake in 60, 70, 80 foot of water where they knew they were going to be inundated, so they left those trees out there. It's easy to learn how to fish it. That's one of the great parts. Sometimes when fishermen go to a big lake, they're just like, oh my gosh, it's 100,000 acres, where do I fish? Well, here it's kind of easier to find that out. The biggest thing they eat in this lake is threadfin shad. We do have some crawfish in the lake. A bass eats pretty much whatever he can catch it, but the dominant thing the fish are feeding on here, the dominant thing that you need to duplicate when you're fishing this lake is shad colors. We're country folk, we're mountain folk, that's all we are, and there's a lot of places to stay down here. There's great places to eat. You know, we're here right close to Keys, and my store is right there in Keys. We got a big outdoor store. There's cabins and motels all along the lake, all the way down to the dam. Gore is on the other end of the lake, another nice little country town down there. We're close to Tahlequah, and basically Tahlequah is turned into a small city, although they like to still think it's a small town. We like to think that of Tahlequah. But the one great thing about Corps of Engineer lakes, and there's a lot of them around the country, is they have incredible facilities. We're here at Pettit Bay. They've got two really nice launch ramps. There are nice launch ramps scattered all up and down the lake. Keep in mind the lake's only about 20 miles long, so every one of these recreational areas have a lot of sites for camping. They have a lot of boat ramps. They have a lot of parking. And just like it's been since I was a teenager fishing down here, once you pass Labor Day weekend, you almost have a 20,000 acre private lake to fish. The easiest way to understand to catch bass is to break it down in seasons, because the bass do certain things every single year, and we want to emulate those things and be in those type areas when we're fishing. An easy pattern in the wintertime, anywhere you are, and Tenkiller is no exception, is just simply to go down to the lower end of the lake. But there's an overflow that they built. The Corps of Engineers built these. They built them on Lake of the Ozarks. They built them on Table Rock. An overflow dam right here. And when they did, they put a little point comes out here right there. These points that are closest to the dam is good fishing. Flats like this flat right over here is good. And you can see the contours. You can see how these lines get further apart on that map. That means that it's flatter and not steep. You see the lines as they go over here. They're very close together. They're almost just can't even see the lines. So you go over here and fish these points that are close to it. Fish the flats that are close to it, and then the rock, the riprap. But one of Jimmy's rules of thumb is anytime you pass a riprap, stop and fish it, because the bass live there all the time, and if you're there when they're feeding on that riprap, you're going to hit a home run. These island points also, points that are near the dam, is going to be your best fishing. You can see this, how steep this point is right here. That point right there is real steep, that point right here. Those are great areas. This point over here comes out, and that's a flat, shallow point over there. So you want to move out further from those out there. The steeper points seem to have better, seem to be better during the wintertime, but that area is what you want to concentrate on. In the wintertime, and just a regular jig, but a jig with something like a little crawl on the end of it. That's what this got on it, this little fish lucky jig with a crawl. One of the things that you want to do on these jigs is if you'll flare that weed guard out like such, flare it out. So it makes it a little softer, so when a fish bites it, they can get to that hook better. And plus, that'll give you a little bit better area as far as hanging up. You won't hang up nearly as badly. So a jig in the wintertime, that's about as good as it comes right there. If you're letting it fall, up, fall, make it fall as much as you possibly can. The more it falls, the better, more chances you have to get a bite. They'll bite that bait when it's moving. It's basically when it's moving, it's just like a spinnerbait without a blade, that's all it is. That's all a spinnerbait is a jig with a blade. You can throw that thing out there and let it fall, have your rod tip high, let it fall, move it, let it fall. So if you get a bite on there, is that a fish, I'm not sure, go ahead and jerk, because they very seldom spit that thing out. The good thing about the winter is it turns into spring. It turns into spring. Now, springtime, you can use the whole lake. There's no doubt about that. You can use the whole lake. Once you get past this winter period, the thing that's important to the fish is spawn. And I break the spawn down into pre-spawn, the spawn, but then I add one more time to it called a pre-spawn. This is when the fish are still in a winter pattern, and they're moving up, back and forth, moving up and back. You can catch them shallow. They go shallow, deep, shallow, deep, shallow, deep. You can make some instant changes as you want. In fact, an instant change of like totally going to the other end of the lake. You've been down here around the dam during the winter time, and you can stay down here around the dam. But if you do that, you're gonna have to fish late winter patterns, which is a little bit different. But the thing that you gotta realize is once it's springtime gets here, you wanna just go opposite and just go up that river. Go all the way, go all the way. And you can see right here, you see how close those lines are together right there and how close those lines are together. Those are probably two pretty good bluff banks. So you wanted that point right there. Excellent point, very good one. You come over here on this other side, the river is coming down that side close to that, this point right here. Very, very good. Go down here, here's the bridge where the bridge goes. This is Elk Creek that comes up into here. And I built those marinas when I was a teenager back in Elk Creek. But again, this area over here, you've got a boat launch over here, and you've got flooded timber out in the middle of the lake that you can't see except on your. But you got these. See how these steep banks come in? You got points around there, around the boat ramp. You got points. You got some riprap jetties that come out there. They're actually man-made jetties that come out to break the waves coming in because of this marina back in here. Those are excellent again, and they are again close to the outside bends in the creek and clear up to here. This little pocket clear up in here. Again, where that creek comes in close by. See that goes over there. Comes in close by both those points there. So those points, and you can do that, and as the water warms to the right temperature, you just simply move down the lake during that spawning and pre-spawn area. But you want to fish those spots in the middle of the afternoon when it's the very warmest. That's when those bass will pull up there. When that water temperature drops down at night, they're going to pull back off, and they're simply not there. The springtime, this water up here is going to warm up a lot quicker than it will warm up down by the dam. And so water temperature is the critical thing you're looking at in the springtime. The water temperature and the spawn. One of Jimmy's rules of thumb is if it's important to the fish, I make it important to me. Now, what I call the actual pre-spawn area is when those bass go up there and start moving down those banks. And when they go in there and they go to those exact same points you're catching them in February and March in, but now they've started moving. But as they're moving back, they will have places that they stop on. And that will be a bush or maybe a boat dock or maybe a rock pile, maybe a little point or a little indentation, stopping points. And those stopping points is what you want to locate. This is the perfect type area right here for the pre-spawned area. You see what we got? It's a point right here. We've got a pocket going this way that they're going to go back up into spawn. We got this big creek, which a lot of bass are going to go back in this creek to spawn. And you can throw a crankbait out there that runs 6 or 7 foot deep. Perfect to throw in that situation. Slow roll a spinnerbait about 5 foot deep and keep it that way all the way back to the boat. That's a good technique to catch bass on a spinnerbait. A suspended jerkbait, we get it down there about 5 or 6 feet and then stop it and let it just spin there. Jerk it down, let it suspend.
Catches a lot of bass in what I call the pre-spawn and the pre-spawn.
Early in the year like this, you want to throw these stick baits on as light a line as you, as you possibly can. We actually, that's a pretty fish right there. We actually end up fishing 6-pound test line a lot. Well, we got on 10 and 12 right now, but to get these things down deeper, you want to go with lighter line. particularly earlier in the year like this. When they get back to the spawning area, I call that the spawn. And the reason I do is because the males may be on the beds, they may be building beds, the males may not even be standing on the beds or anything. But here's something that a lot of people don't really understand. Both the males and females are back there at the same time. You know, people talk about, oh, all I saw is buck bass. There's nothing back there but buck bass within these spawning areas. That's untrue. The female bass are back there. Generally, they're out here in front of where those fish are going to be spawning. They'll be spawning maybe in inches of water up to, well, on a real clear lake, 10 foot deep. But you find these pockets they're going to spawn in. You want to find the tail ends of these little pockets and coves. And all of these have little tail ends right here. The north shoreline is going to warm up quicker than the south shoreline. So, but all of these little deals here, and you want to look at for little tiny indentations that are kind of hard to see on the map. But when you zoom in to some of this, you can see, as you go up in here, you see these little areas that go back in, just little tiny areas that go back in, and then they'll spawn clear to the tail end. When you get to the tail end, a lot of these fish will spawn right out in the middle of it if the water's fairly clear. But so you want to look for those areas like that. And again, this pocket right here, these banks steep, that bank steep, but then you go back in there, and as you get to flatten out, this is where they're going to end up and going to spawn. One of the very best baits to catch during the spawn of the year, and basically you can use this any time of the year, is a sinking worm. Gary Yamamoto developed this worm. When he developed it, it sort of looked like a part of an ink pen that was just like straight, not curly tail, not nothing. And but that's rigged basically Texas style. That's a great way to fish a fish on a bed. Now I've got a larger slip sinker on this because this is not spawning time of the year. But spawning time of the year, what you want as small a slip sinker as you can get away with, or don't put any weight on at all. Pick it up, move it a little bit. When you pick it up, move it, you stop it, let it fall. They'll bite it. It's just tantalizing. It works all year long. It's dynamite on a bed though. Here's one right here. Oh yeah, baby doll. Got that sinking worm, stinking sinking worm. He might have swallowed it. No, he's hooked right, hooked perfectly. What am I talking about? Swallowed it, hooked perfectly. Boy, those are nice, good quality fish right there. Look at that. The post spawn is a real simple deal to think about. You can just use this one little trick and make it work just about anywhere at your fish. Where the fish are going to go after they spawn is they're going to go back to the same points that you were fishing in the pre-spawn area. They will go back to those same points. Now, there's 2 or 3 caveats that you take into condition in this post-spawn area. It is historically a very difficult time to catch the fish. One of the critical things that happens in post-spawn, the first 10 to 14 days, they will suspend over deep water. That's a critical thing to remember. When you're fishing for post-spawn fish, the first couple of weeks after they spawn, after that big female lays her eggs and leaves, they go out and they suspend. All that happens in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, but now we're down into May, maybe early June. This is when I like to find offshore structure. That's when you want to find ledges, underwater humps and islands, and also these old lakes like Tenkiller still have the concrete foundations. Where my wife grew up as a little girl, that foundation is still under the water, 40 foot deep, right here on Lake Tenkiller. My guess is it's got a bass on it right now. But her old foundation is somewhere. This little pocket goes up here, got a lot of boat docks in it, good fishing place. Is off in here somewhere. Another place where there's quite a few foundations, in this right straight across over here. This is a great springtime place, great fall time place. This point goes way out, it's called Needle Point. But out in front of this big wide area right here, out in front of that, you see all these little deals coming out? Out in front of that area, there's lots of old foundations out in there. Post-spawn, a crankbait like this right here. This is a Fish Lucky Deep Smoothie. It runs about 8 foot deep on 15-pound test line. You want to make sure that you get a bait that does not get under the fish. These fish are going to be suspended off of these points, generally in about 5 to 8 foot of water. So you got a crankbait that'll run 5 to 8 feet, 6 foot, something as you bring it in, goes over the top of them. Once you get a crankbait or anything down below them, they hardly ever bite it. They just won't hardly ever bite it. So you got to get your bait up on top of the fish and bring it over the top of them. So you get a crankbait that runs below them, won't get a strike. Now, if you got a favorite crankbait that's running too deep, just move to bigger line and it'll run a little bit shallower. Just crank and stop, crank and stop. The main thing to remember about almost any lure that you throw, don't ever just throw it out there and wind it back in. You need to always be doing something. Jerk your rod tip, stop, start, different speeds, whatever. A good rule of thumb, Jimmy's rule of thumb, don't just throw it out and wind it back in. Pretty nice little fish right there. It's like a spot. Largemouth. Largemouth, yeah. Now that, a little bit more like Tenkiller bass.
Now later on, when the fish move deep offshore around the structure, I'm still going to throw that crankbait, and I'm also going to add a jig and maybe a Texas rig around rocks at Old Foundation.
Now we get into the fall of the year. And so we're gonna follow these, we're gonna keep on following these fish, and we're gonna sort of reverse back and go to the main areas we're gonna try to fish. And keep in mind, in the fall, you can catch them all over the lake. But now if you move down again to this end of the lake down here, what you wanna do in this end of the lake is concentrate on points and rocks. Fish the same points you were fishing in the wintertime. Fish these same points. And now, the good thing about the fall is you can catch fish all over the lake, all the way up. Now, as you move up, you get about mid-lake. I lived at Cookson. I lived at Cookson, which is right here in the middle of the lake, So, to the middle of the lake up this way, I've spent more time fishing than down this way, although I've fished every inch of it everywhere. But so you want to move up here, and if you want to get up here and get in the river area, you want to start finding these little pockets that's got gravel down the sides of them, and you want to follow the shad. The shad will start, they'll be out here around the points to begin with. That's when the points are going to hold a lot of fish. They will eventually move back up in here. And when you get into late November, most of those shad are going to be in the tail ends of all these pockets. But from here, when you're talking about, the middle of October, November, all the way up even through Thanksgiving, you'll have water temperature that's in the low 60s, 62, 60, 59, 58. 58, the majority of the fish are going to be relatively shallow. One of the patterns during the fall, obviously, is fish getting really, really shallow. There's a nice little pocket like this little pocket right here, which is a great place to fish in the fall. On that little point back there, I saw a school of shad. They were up close to the surface, so we want to run that spinnerbait right up on top of the water, or at least pretty close to the surface. A good rule of thumb to start, throw that thing out there and watch that bait where you can just barely see it. You barely see the bait coming back in. Might drop it a little bit deeper as it gets closer, because it's closer you can see it. Fish about the depth it's going to come in. This particular bait right here is a retro spinnerbait. It goes way back. I won 2 BASS Angler of the Years on this spinnerbait. One single spin blade, small blade, number 5 blade. This little pocket right here, which is a sock full of shad. So when you find this, you obviously want to fish as far up in there as you can, all the way to the very end of it. Look at that tree. Got to be something right here. Get ready. Get ready to jerk, Jimmy. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, it had to happen. It had to happen. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. I love it. I don't know if there's a better game to play than this. I don't know what it is. Hey guys and gals, thank you so much for joining me here on my home lake, Lake Tenkiller. Hope you learned something about where to fish. Guys and girls, have a great one out there. Fish lucky. And remember, I sure do love you.